the news that the New York Times and other uniparty publications are trying to sweep under the rug.
All right, well, let's hear it from Jake Tapper.
Regardless, the report is now here. It has dropped, and it might not have produced everything of what some Republicans hoped for. It is, regardless, devastating to the FBI, and to a degree, it does exonerate Donald Trump. Regardless.
So that's from Jake Tapper, who, for years and years and years pushed the conspiracy theory that Trump was a Russian asset, was a Russian conspirator, now being forced to admit that the Durham Report, which is a special counsel investigation into the origins of the whole Trump-Russia investigation, has found that the whole thing was baseless, that Durham concluded that the investigation should never have been launched to begin with. And that's something we've been saying forever, but it's good to see Jake Tapper finally catching up with that 6 years later. And we didn't need, of course, a report from a prosecutor to know that Russiagate was a scam. But Durham's report just newly underscores it. Unfortunately, though, it also underscores just how completely, what complete impunity there is for the national security state, because Durham ultimately did not hold anybody to account. He ultimately backed down on doing anything, I think, really substantive and holding people to account, to the point where so many powerful figures who were involved in this probe, instrumental, like Peter Strzok, the agent who opened up the Trump-Russia probe, Andrew McCabe, who oversaw it, Bill Priestap, who also oversaw it at the FBI, Mark Elias, who's an attorney for the Clinton campaign, who was very integral to hiring Christopher Steele for the Steele essay. All these people refused to speak to Durham, and Durham, instead of using his subpoena power, just backed off. He caved, and he didn't force anyone to come testify. And compare that to Mueller and the Mueller team, who knew they had nothing to go on, who knew that the Trump-Russia conspiracy theory was a scam. They nonetheless used every law they could and every tool they could to make the Russia investigation look credible. And they charged all these people to give the false appearance that there was something to this whole Trump-Russia investigation. They basically were content creators for cable news who were lapping all this up as a real-life spy thriller and giving people the false impression that there was something to it. So Durham's investigation, it underscores that this was a scam. And he provides more evidence that the Clinton campaign hatched this scam. Not that we didn't know that already too, but it also reveals how completely powerless we are in providing any real oversight of the national security state when they decide that they want to even take out an elected president.
Well, those who know the history of the FBI, going back to the early days of J. Edgar Hoover, the McCarthy, the HUAC investigations, COINTELPRO, all the way through the so-called war on terror, when the FBI would cook up manufactured terror plots to trick mentally vulnerable young Muslim men into criminal and terror activity and then arrest them in order to justify the whole budget of the war on terror, who actually were involved in inciting mass shootings like the attack in Garland, Texas on the Draw Muhammad contest. They know the FBI is totally corrupt, that it is an institution that is unreformed, corrupt, and deeply dangerous to whatever exists of democracy. Here you have a pretty devastating report on the FBI in the context of Russiagate. What did it find about the FBI, specifically the culture of the FBI? And did Durham actually call for any real reform to take place? Because it seems to me like he kind of said this was something in the past and we're just going to move on.
I think the most important thing they found is this. So Durham uncovered that, or he newly underscored, because this was known before. It didn't get very much attention, but he highlighted the fact that right at the start of the Trump-Russia investigation in July 2016, the first tip that high-level U.S. officials got about Trump and Russia was not that there was some tangible suspicion of a Trump-Russia conspiracy. The first tip they got was that the Clinton campaign was coming up with a fake plan to smear Trump as a Russian conspirator. And John Brennan, the director of the CIA, got this tip because his agents had picked this up from Russia, from them monitoring Russian communications. And Brennan thought that this intelligence was so important and so potentially incriminating. He actually went to Obama and he briefed Obama on this and said to Obama, this is July 2016, and said to Obama and other top administration officials that we've picked up word that Clinton is trying to frame Trump as a Russian agent. Now, shortly after that, the FBI nonetheless opens up the Trump-Russia investigation. And it's not an investigation into Hillary Clinton framing Trump. It's an investigation into the possibility that Trump really is a Russian agent. And they do this on this ridiculous predicate that some low-level Trump volunteer named George Papadopoulos had suggested some kind of suggestion. That's a direct quote from the opening document that started this whole thing, that Russia may have offered help to Trump, even though the actual tip contained nothing of the sort. It was so vague and stupid. So the FBI, despite the government learning that the Clinton campaign is plotting to frame Trump as a Russian agent, the FBI doesn't investigate that. Instead, they open up an investigation that advances the conspiracy theory that Clinton was concocting. And moreover, they use the Steele dossier, which they knew the Clinton campaign was paying for, to pursue leads and even apply for surveillance warrants on people like Carter Page. So that's really like a really damning thing, which is that government knew from the start that the Clinton campaign was up to something. Instead of looking into that, they ignored that and advanced this investigation that was completely baseless. And they were warned multiple times. In September of 2016, the CIA also sent an investigative referral to the FBI, to Jim Comey and Peter Strzok. And if they've been asked about this, and Jim Comey says he doesn't remember receiving that. He says it doesn't ring a bell. So it's so obvious what's going on here. They knew from the start this was a scam. They decided for their own reasons, and for that we can only speculate why, that they were going to actually ignore what Clinton was doing and in fact take it as source material and bolster it. And the reasons are, not hard to guess. One, everybody inside the national security state hated Trump because he puts a bad face on the war machine. He blurts out the wrong things. He's not an elegant steward of the global empire like Obama was or Clinton would be. Also, he was saying nice things about Russia. He wanted to get along with Russia, and people who exist inside the national security state, they can't handle that. It triggers them because they're conditioned to believe Russia is their enemy, and their jobs and their post-government jobs kind of depend on having these official enemies, right? And also, everyone expected Clinton to win. So I think they figured that if they went along with this, they'd be rewarded under a Clinton administration. That's why people like Mike Morrell, a former deputy director of the CIA, during the summer of 2016, he was writing in the New York Times that he thinks Trump is a Russian asset. And he was rumored to be Hillary's CIA director. So when Trump won, it blew all this up. And rather than, shut it all down, they only expanded it. And they used it to basically box him in on the issue of Russia and prevent any prospect of meaningful diplomacy with Russia. So basically, I think the headline thing from the Durham probe is that they knew from the start that this was a Clinton plot. And instead, they used Clinton's fabrications, like the Steele dossier, as source material. But again, like one more thing here, just showing how limited Durham was, right? So everyone knows now that Clinton funded the Steele dossier. The FBI relied on that. Everyone knows that. That's low-hanging fruit at this point. What only Grayzone readers know and Jimmy Dore fans will know, a few others will know, is that the Clinton campaign also was behind the other major Russiagate allegation, which is that Russia hacked the DNC emails. And they were behind that because it was their contractor, Crowdstrike, that put that out. And that claim from Crowdstrike that Russia hacked the DNC, that kicked off Russiagate. So Durham in his report recognizes how improper it was for the FBI to be relying on Clinton-funded material like the Steele dossier as source material. He says that explicitly. But he doesn't apply that judgment to Crowdstrike, even though Clinton was just as equally behind the other major Russiagate allegation, which is the Russia hacked the DNC. And he doesn't say anything about that at all. Nothing. He doesn't mention Crowdstrike once. Why? Why would Durham not go there? And again, the only conclusion I can draw is he was intimidated. He saw that there was a red line. Everyone knows now the collusion was a scam. But this allegation that Russia hacked the DNC, that's been used for bipartisan purposes. That's been used to say that Russia attacked the U.S., undermined democracy. And that helps feed into a narrative that not only criminalizes diplomacy with Russia, but helps justify waging a proxy war against it and rejecting any kind of negotiations to end the current war in Ukraine.
Yeah. So the Washington Post and New York Times won Pulitzers for their Russiagate coverage based on information that turned out to be misinformation, malinformation, disinformation that was discredited in the Durham Report. We all knew it was fake. Jake Tapper won some awards too. I don't know if we should do a retrospective on some of the lies that were told over the past few years that have just been blown out of the water.
Yes, let's do that. I mean, let's take a little trip down memory lane. Why not? I mean, again, it's easy to laugh at it now, but if people remember at the time, this consumed everything, and this was the dominant conspiracy theory that just dominated everything for so long, and it's so ridiculous now because finally you have this report showing that it was all a scam, and everybody who perpetrated the scam either says that there's nothing to see here, oh, Durham found nothing, or they just completely ignore it as if it never happened to begin with. But let's not forget that all this happened.
Voters in America should decide who our president is, not Vladimir Putin.
The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president.
The bottom line of this dossier, the bottom line allegation, the point of this is they colluded. They helped. They were in on it.
What does Vladimir Putin have on President Trump?
And they've also decided who they want to see become president of the United States, too, and it's not me.
Secondly, I found out that Vladimir Putin doesn't want me to be president.
We need to make it very clear, whether it's Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else.
This election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved.
As 17 of our intelligence agencies have confirmed,
17 intelligence agencies,
17.
50 national security officials who served in Republican information in administration have said that Donald is unfit to be the commander in chief.
There are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And that's exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
exactly what.
This is where he's going.
Well, we know.
So 50 that's separate from the 51 who said the Hunter Biden laptop was fake, but they were all the same people, pretty much.
Yeah, no, that is what he's referring to. He's referring to the Hunter laptop letter. And
that was 2020. Was that 2016 when she said 50?
Sorry. Yeah.
Clinton is referring to 50.
Hillary's referring to 50. Yeah.
It's like they bring out the 50 spooks.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the 101 Dalmatians or the Blue Man Group of the Democratic spook world that they just bring out to say whatever they want because these guys all are hoping to serve in that administration or ladies are hoping to serve in that administration. That's just amazing to me.
It's the exact same playbook 2 elections in a row. Getting retired
CIA intervened in 2 elections in a row.
The same playbook by basically painting any criticism or damning information about the Democratic candidate as a Russian operation. 2 elections in a row, the exact same people. The same thing. And we only recently learned, just came out a few weeks ago, that it was the Biden administration that specifically triggered that fake letter from those 51 former intelligence
Michael Morrell,
yeah,
on behalf of, with Tony Blinken as the kind of middleman.
Yeah.
But it was Morrell because he wanted to be CIA director.
Exactly.
He was going to be CIA. All right, let's go back to the lie fest.
Know that this whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin.
We know it.
I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan.
When Russia puts bounties on the heads of our soldiers in Afghanistan.
That Russia has bounties on the heads.
On the heads of American soldiers.
There are several factors that contributed to the low to moderate confidence.
Current host on MSNBC, by the way.
In the judgment, including the difficulty of
So, anyway, that's just an example of the interest that Russiagate has served, and it bled over into 2020 when the same playbook was used, and also was used for the Russian bounty scam, which helped sabotage an early withdrawal from Afghanistan. not just for partisan interests, it's also to sabotage diplomacy with Russia and to encourage confrontation with it and to further militarism, which makes sense that the people behind this are all intelligence officials and allied neocons. So that's what Russiagate was all about.
And Adam Schiff is right in the middle of it. Adam Schiff, should he be sent to the Congressional Ethics Committee for this? He lied repeatedly and made statements about conversations that Trump had with Putin based on his own notes and not any real statement. It seems like Schiff, and Schiff is running for Senate in California. It seems like he's really on the hook here for all of these lies more than anyone.
Let's take a listen to memory lane.
In which the Russians offered help, which we know they did. The campaign accepted help, which we know they did. The Russians then delivered help, which we know they did.
There is circumstantial evidence of collusion.
The case is more than that, and I can't go into the particulars, but there is more than circumstantial evidence now. So
you've said on more than one occasion that you've seen ample evidence of the Trump campaign's Russia collusion. Last March, you said you had more than circumstantial evidence of treasonous collusion with Russia.
I've certainly said that there's ample evidence of collusion.
Can you agree that there has been no evidence of collusion, coordination, or conspiracy that has been presented thus far between the Trump campaign and Russia?
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's plenty of evidence of collusion or conspiracy.
But we do know this. The Russians offered help. The campaign accepted help. The Russians gave help, and the president made full use of that help. And that is pretty damning.
Reviewing the evidence that I have.
I mean, the most unhinged conspiracy theorist in the U.S., I think. Certainly the most consequential. His lies have caused so much damage. Recall also that he led the impeachment effort against Trump when Trump briefly paused some weapons to Ukraine. And that's when Adam Schiff got up and said that we aid Ukraine so that we can fight Russia over there. We don't have to fight Russia here. All this attention on George Santos for lying. George Santos's lies are so inconsequential compared to Adam Schiff's lies. And somehow he's still treated as a respected figure inside the party, which shows you what a strong cult Blue Anon is. Because at least with George Santos, you know, there are people of his own party who don't defend him. With Adam Schiff, everyone pretends as if he's some serious figure and not an unhinged liar who did so much damage, I think, to the world.
Yeah. Kim.com said today, Adam Schiff's neck grows like Pinocchio's nose. And I wonder if he'll be held accountable at all. I mean, it just seems like in California running for the Senate, the Democratic base won't even care that Schiff essentially helped lie the U.S. into a proxy war that is basically a U.S. war.
Yeah, I know. In fact, there's a report in Politico today, I think, that Nancy Pelosi is basically accusing people of being sexist somehow if they don't help Schiff win over. Or there's something really funny. Like Pelosi is basically supporting Schiff over Barbara Lee in the Senate race, and I don't know. That doesn't surprise me at all. Of course, he's going to be rewarded for what he did. And you know what makes all this all the more hilarious? So the CNN, MSNBC, they all parrot this ridiculous conspiracy theory for years. And not only are they parroting the claims of intelligence officials, they're even hiring them as their colleagues. So here, for example, is Andrew McCabe, key figure in the Trump-Russia probe. He helped oversee the Trump-Russia probe when it began. He helped authorize it. And then in May 2017, after Trump became president, McCabe himself personally opened up a second probe of Trump as a Russian agent. People don't know this. There were actually two
Trump
probes. Yeah,
I didn't quite know that.
There was one. The first one opened up, like the overarching one opened up in July 31st, 2016. That's Crossfire Hurricane. Andrew McCabe, this guy right here, opened up a second probe of Trump while he was president as a Russian agent. And the New York Times reported that McCabe did this based on Trump's public statements, that he was basically said nice things about Putin, that he talked about getting out of NATO, that he talked about ending the war in Ukraine that began in 2014 after the U.S. backed coup. So this guy, Andrew McCabe, opened up an investigation of a president as a Russian agent. And we still don't know really what happened with that investigation, aside from that it closed down. But we don't know the details from it because it's been kept under wraps. And Durham doesn't tell us anything about it. But here is Andrew McCabe now as a paid contributor on CNN after he refused to be interviewed by John Durham. So he gets to refuse to interview. He gets to refuse to speak to a special counsel investigation into a scam that he was a part of. But he gets to go on CNN as a paid contributor and claim that Durham found nothing.
Why couldn't he be subpoenaed? Sorry to.
He could be subpoenaed, but Durham didn't do it. And
Pathetic.
When Durham goes before Congress next week, or whenever he goes before Congress, I hope they ask him that, because why would you not subpoena all these key figures when you know you're investigating a fraud? And the only answer I can come up with is that he was intimidated. He was basically, it was communicated to him that there are certain areas that you just shouldn't go. And I think he backed down. What else are we supposed to conclude from not subpoenaing all these key figures? It doesn't make any sense.
In this report for the Justice Department about changing procedures, I mean, there have been a lot of changes at Justice based on the Inspector General's report back in 2019 and others.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, because John Durham has failed to come up with anything new. Most of the report, the parts that I've been able to read in the last few hours, are a regurgitation of findings that were made by the Inspector General. Their attempt to justify two failed prosecutions that he brought against Igor Danchenko and Michael Sussman. There is nothing new here.
Okay. So there we go. Nothing new here.
I wonder why they failed against Danchenko.
Yeah. So anyway, it's just the corruption inside the FBI is one thing, but the corruption inside our media is just unbelievable. The fact that these people's lies were parroted and then they get to go on TV as now paid experts. It says it all right there.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of corruption in the media, this is the New York Times. John Durham's report on the FBI's investigation into the Trump campaign's work with Russia, which produced no startling revelations, is being viewed by some conservatives as lending credence to their conspiracy theories about the U.S. agency. No, it's discrediting your conspiracy theories that pervaded U.S. media, including your own publication for which you won a Pulitzer Prize for the last 5 years. Sorry, 8 years. I can't even keep track. What, 7 years?
Yeah.
It's been 7 years of nonstop blue and on conspiracy theories that have finally culminated with the war they wanted. And this is what they have to say: no startling revelations, and that it's actually validating conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so irresponsible, and it just shows what the New York Times is, which is just this kind of, it's an opinion journal for the coastal intelligentsia that is still wedded to all of the blue and on conspiracies.
This is the first time in history that I can recall where people debunking a conspiracy theory are the ones called conspiracy theorists, right? Did the Times ever call collusion a conspiracy theory? Because if that's not a conspiracy theory, what is? This is a theory of a conspiracy between Trump and Russia. That sounds like a conspiracy theory. Did it pan out? No, it didn't. But yet somehow the people who challenged that conspiracy theory are called by the New York Times conspiracy theorists.
I think the New York Times and Washington Post should have their Pulitzers retracted. Everyone who won any award for Russiagate, except you, who won the only award for debunking it, should have their awards rescinded, and they should get Nina Jankowicz disinformation awards. So, yeah, this is someone in the chat said regime media. That's what this is. This is the regime trying to cover its tracks. And the Durham investigation has let them off the hook in a way. There won't be any real intelligence reform here.
There'll be nothing. And if we're talking about regime media, let's not forget all the self-identified progressive and lefty outlets who bought into this too, and who attacked us for daring to not go along with really the dumbest conspiracy theory of all time. We can't forget them as well.